What we're going to do now is look at warm-up exercise number 1. Now, what you need to do before you practice this exercise is make sure that your hand is in the classical hand position. So if I lean forward, you'll notice how my thumb is roughly opposite my second finger, and it's at the back of the neck. And all 4 fingers are nicely evenly spaced. My little finger is sort of leaning to the outside, and my index finger is also leaning to the outside as well. And the idea is, once you're in this nice comfortable hand position, then you'll play through all the pairs of the fingers. So we're going to be going from the first finger to the second finger, and then the first finger to the third finger, and then the first finger to the fourth finger, and then the second finger to the third finger, and the second to the fourth finger, and then finally the third finger to the fourth finger. And because this is just a warm-up exercise, we're not going to bother doing it to a metronome, and the idea is just to play through the finger combinations nice and slow and relaxed. There's no need to rush. The idea is just to warm up the fingers. Now, once you've played through the finger combinations on the low E string, then you move all 4 fingers to the A string and double check that all the fingers are evenly spaced. And then you go through the sequence of notes again. So I'll just demonstrate that. Move to the next string, double check all the fingers are nice and evenly spaced. And I'll stop there, but the idea is you'd then move to the G string and do the same thing, and then the B string, and then finally the thin E string. If you find that you haven't done 5 minutes practice by the time you get all the way to here, then all you need to do is work your way back again. Now, there's one really important thing. I'm not sure if it's very obvious by watching the video, but what I'm doing is I'm never having more than 1 finger pressing down at once. So when I'm going from fingers 1 and 2, what I'm actually doing is when my second finger is pushing down, I'm relaxing my first finger. So my first finger is not staying pressing down. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is this is just a gentle warm-up, and you'll generally find that the more fingers you have pressing down at once, the more muscular effort that's required. So what I'm doing as part of this warm-up is just transferring the pressure from one finger to the next. So if I just demonstrate the first 2 fingers, when I play the first note, the first finger note, I've got this finger pressing down, and then fingers 2, 3 and 4 are sort of hovering a few millimeters above the low E string. And then when I go to play the second finger note, the second finger presses down, and the pressure that I'm using to fret this note relaxes. So by the time this note's playing, this finger is just lightly touching the string. So it's not off the string, it's just lightly touching. And likewise, when I'm going from fingers 1 to 3, I just transfer the pressure between the fingers. So by the time I play the third finger note, that third finger is pressing down hard enough to fret, but this first finger is just lightly touching. And when I go from 1 to 4, at this point in time, this finger's fretting, it's pressing down, and this finger's lightly touching. Now when I move on to the second finger as the starting note, so I'm going from fingers 2 to 3, in this starting position my second finger's pressing down, my first finger's just lightly touching the string, and these two fingers of course are sort of floating in the air. And then when I go from fingers 2 to 3, I transfer the pressure, so this finger is now lightly touching. So these two fingers are lightly touching the string. And when I go from 2 to 4, it's the same thing. I'm transferring the finger pressure from the second finger to the fourth finger. Now when I'm doing the third finger to the fourth finger, when I play the third finger note, the third finger is pressing down, and these two fingers are just lightly touching the string, so they're not off in the air like that, they're just lightly touching. And then when I go from 3 to 4, at this point in time the only finger pressing down is the little finger, and these three fingers are lightly touching. Now the reason why I keep my fingers lightly touching is I want to train them not to lift off the string too much, and it's just a habit I've gotten into. Now with that said, because this is just a warm-up, you don't have to go into that detail. So what I'm saying is, if you want to play the exercise exactly like I did, I've just told you how I do it, but if you want to move your fingers more, then that's fine as well. So I'll show you what I mean. If I went through like this, and my fingers are actually coming off the string when I transfer the pressure, like that, I mean that's probably not as efficient as the way I'm playing it, but because this is a warm-up it doesn't really matter. So just do it the way that you feel most comfortable. Okay, now I've zoomed back a little bit so you'll be able to see my picking hand a lot more clearly. What I'm going to do now is demonstrate the exercise, and I'll play through it from start to finish. And what I'll do is I'll play along to the metronome set to 80 beats per minute. Now I've got to stress that for your warm-ups you don't really need to play to the metronome, because the goal of the exercise is to warm up the fingers, so it makes no difference in terms of that goal whether or not you use a metronome. But what I'll do is, as I say, I'll play along to the metronome just so if you do want to practice to a metronome you can kind of see how I'm doing it. I need to stress that for this warm-up I'm only going to be doing one note per click. One, two, three, 4.